welcome to the D3D4 Football Podcast with me, your host, James Richards. Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, the 10th of May. We were not meant to have a podcast today. However, things have come to light in the week that made it important for us to get back around the invisible table as we record over the Skype airwaves to chat about what has been presented by certain EFL chairmen regarding the ending of the season in League 1 and 2. The article in question came out in The Athletic sometime on Thursday, I think it was, but Wednesday or Thursday, talking about the fact that there's an agreement in place to end the season based on a points per game, like a points per game system, which is what has been discussed quite widely as a possible option. And in that system, for example, it would see Cheltenham, I think, overtake Exeter to become the fourth promoted side in League 2. It doesn't really change very much, in all honesty, regarding the promotion relegation places, but there is a lot of discussion about whether this is going to be the fairest way to end it. And I think, in truth, we can all agree that there is no actual 100% fair way to do anything other than finishing the season. And even that may not be quite as fair because the circumstances around it have changed the way the game is being played. So it's very, very difficult to sort of come to some sort of agreement. But alas, this is appearing to be, or indeed on Thursday or Wednesday, whenever it came out, appeared to be how everything was going to be resolved. Now, today I am joined by Ed Walker, my co-host as always, but I'm also joined by Peter Taylor, better known as his alias on Twitter as Bury Me in Exile, who, of course, we all remember talking very extensively about the situation at Bury during their crisis. And Peter, welcome back to the podcast. I'd be interested to get your take on everything because we've been without football for about 7-8 weeks. I mean, you've been out without football for a lot longer than that.
A year now, nearly.
Yeah, exactly. What's your take on, firstly, the proposals that have been put forward in The Athletic, and secondly, just how football is being conducted in general regarding this current crisis?
So obviously, I don't have the skin in the game as it were now. So maybe people can take what I say with a pinch of salt, but I still err on the side of probably the fairest. And there, like you said in the introduction, there is no completely equitable 100% fair way. I still err on the side of nulling and voiding, to be quite honest, because all the other proposals like points per game, or there's been some more technical proposals as well. It's all based on an assumption that things would carry on as they are. But any rudimentary study of how last 10 games of a season goes in the EFL, it's never to script. It's never the same points per game for the sides near the top or the bottom. So, obviously the article says that teams could lose out legally and financially from any null and void, but to be quite honest, there's probably going to be legal precedents for any other method used too, and certainly financially, clubs are already losing out quite a lot as it is, and obviously some clubs, all their players and non-playing staff are on furlough. Some clubs have already released players because of the situation. So
just to bring that up, actually, quite interesting case with Colchester releasing 4 players. 3 of them, you'd say, are pretty much first names on the team sheet. Luke Prosser, their captain, Frank Nouble. They also released Brandon Comley. And who was
Ryan Jackson's gone as well.
Yeah, Ryan Jackson. I mean, what a player he is at this level. And
he's fantastic. Yeah,
so I mean that's the stark contrast, isn't it? So Robbie Cowling came out and saying, "I've got no choice. I mean, I'd love to offer them contracts, but we may not be able to pay for those contracts going forward because we don't yet know how things are going to pan out." So very, very difficult position for League 1 and 2 clubs regarding contracts. But this could just be the tip of the iceberg, I have a feeling, because the overheads that clubs have to incur are quite massive. No money at all coming in. And there is, I mean, we talk about wait until this situation subsides somewhat and then restart. We've seen South Korea start their season, though I did see reports that they're having to maybe clamp things down a little bit as they've had a spike in infection cases again. So, it's very difficult. Dynamo Dresden's entire squad has gone into a 2-week lockdown or 2-week self-isolation because of an infection case. So this is a week before the German season was about to restart. So again, it just highlights how difficult restarting the game actually is. Clubs in League 1 and 2, of course, won't have the pulling power of Championship clubs. But one thing I really don't agree with, and I know there's different financial situations, but this is not all the case, because not every Championship club is a Leeds or a West Brom, for example, or whatever. But if you have one body, the EFL, you cannot have two of its divisions decided in one way and one of them decided in another. I personally don't like that. I don't think that's right. It stinks of this division's important and these two aren't, essentially. I know there's commercial aspects to it. I understand League 1 and 2 clubs are financially on their knees. But if you're doing it for League 1 and 2, again, like I say, it's very difficult to see how the Championship, the Premier League's going to restart if you're looking at situations elsewhere. But firstly, Ed, let's get your take on that.
Talking about what you just said there with the EFL, I know you have your argument. I agree on the point that it is one entity, that EFL, but we are in such exceptional and unprecedented circumstances. I can kind of understand if they did do it. I think I'm a bit surprised the Championship is trying to go ahead like the Premier League. I get the Premier League going ahead. Championship, I'm not so sure. We'll have to see with that. But the truth is, I just want an answer now. I think this debate's been going on for 2 months about what's going to happen. And clubs need to know sooner rather than later, because they need to know what their strategy is. Do they need to bring their players back ready to retrain, get up to match fitness ready to the season, or can they, you could kind of call it a hibernation period where they look to sustain themselves for a period of several months or so with very limited income? They need to know which strategy it is they're doing, because the longer they're sat there twiddling their thumbs, the worse it's going to get.
Yeah, do we think, Peter, that all clubs will survive this crisis to see whenever the next season begins?
No. Very simply put. That includes EFL clubs as well as obviously clubs further down the pyramid. But one of the other things, just picking up on what was just said then, is this: all the coronavirus has really done is highlight all the pre-existing problems within the game. So, like I say, the Premier League will do one thing because it's a separate body. The EFL will do another thing that's a separate body, and then they'll do two different things, their own divisions. And then, obviously, all the leagues below the EFL are managed by the FA, and they've already taken a decision essentially to null and void everything below the National League. So you got all those doing that, and a lot of those clubs won't survive as a result. Not of the null and void, but just of the season ending prematurely.
Yeah, we've already seen a couple of non-league clubs, haven't we, disappear?
Yeah. So it just highlights the lackadaisical sort of very splintered governance of the game. All this does to me, and I'd much rather there be a joint sort of decision on whatever their outcome is decided, rather than this body does this thing, this body does that thing. It just, as I say, it just highlights who's really in control of the English game. Is it the Premier League? Is it the FA? Probably not the AFL, but
definitely not the EFL. They're not even in control of the EFL, are they?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
I think what's interesting, if you look at the Athletic article and the points per game system, straight away you had Darren McCanty, Peterborough chairman, coming out saying, if this is how it's decided, we will sue, we will take legal action, there'll be other owners doing the same. Because he quite rightly put that they are, I think, 2 points off the automatic promotion places. And they've got five games remaining at home, 7 games against teams in the bottom 11. He's basically saying we have a very favourable run-in, and so this is not a fair way to end the season.
But it's not guaranteed.
Of course it's not guaranteed.
This is my issue with it, and I get his point. But this is where people are trying to say that the idea of this points per game is to predict the final run-in. You can't predict the final run-in with it, because you never know what could happen with some of these fixtures.
Well, Peterborough, the Jean van der Velde of football, aren't they? If you, I don't know. I think I think if you look at their history, they do tend to struggle to get things completed.
Yeah, exactly.
So I do wonder. But again, if he's opening up this idea of legal action, this could then drag on, I suppose, Peter, into the next season as well, potentially.
Yeah, it'll probably go on for quite a long time, especially if there are other clubs wanting to do the same thing, and it just creates a very murky mess that just continues to divide clubs and supporters of those clubs, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Also on the agenda, after all this has been going on, the B team debate has raised its head again. Dan Ashworth, the technical director at Brighton, was talking about the fact that this is an opportunity for a realignment in football, to see B teams come back in to the fold. I mean, I don't know if it's as a replacement for all the clubs that they think are going to go bankrupt, or in fact as a way of just saying, you can be our feed club. In American sports, there's like the provincial teams tend to be the feeder clubs for the sort of the big league sides. In the NHL, it's certainly the case. I know in Major League Baseball it is. I mean, you could essentially see Oxford United become the place where Chelsea send their players to develop.
But that works in the US system because you don't get promotion.
Exactly.
The top division is the top division. You stay in it. It's not like we're not like the MLS where you've got the feeder clubs down in the lower divisions and then you've got the MLS sides. You actually can get up into the same divisions as them here. So why would you want Oxford to become the feeder team to, I don't know, let's say Tottenham Hotspur, for example? Would you really want?
No, absolutely. I'd hate the idea. In fact, I said on Twitter, and I do stand by it, if B teams did come into the lower leagues, I would not watch football anymore. I'd have absolutely zero interest. As D3D4, would I have any interest in reporting on a game between, I don't know, Grimsby Town and Newcastle B side? No. Not at all. It'd just be soul destroying. And I don't agree that that's the way you have to go. I think there's other options to explore before that. We've seen the idea as well of put forward about regionalisation of League 1 and 2 back to its sort of traditional state of Division 3 North and South or whatever. I mean, Peter, again, with your historical knowledge of football, do you think that's something that might have to be considered?
Yeah, that's something I actually wrote about way before the coronavirus situation. Not because of that, but I just was kind of coming at it from an angle that there are too many games as it is, and other factors into that as well, and obviously the financial aspect too. I thought there was too many games, and a way of cutting down those games would be to regionalise the third and fourth tier. It's just highlighting for me how little sort of wiggle room there is in the calendar. Obviously, they couldn't have predicted the coronavirus and the situation it would cause, but any slight knock-on effect, like say, I don't know, there's like a really bad snow situation in the winter for 2 or 3 weeks, and his calendar just goes completely kaput, really. So I just think there should be more time between games, and one way of doing that would be to regionalise and just have fewer games, like, I don't know, like a league of 15 or 16 rather than 24. I know quite a few people would be opposed to that. I once said it to Andy Holt, the Accrington Stanley chairman. He was vehemently against it because obviously there'd be less revenue from hosting home games. But if there was a mechanism to prevent that from happening, I think it's potentially the way forward. Not like you say about B teams, kind of like in other fields we're looking at now, like in politics, when this situation has come to the fore, people are using their ideas that they already had, some that have been tried and failed before, or just some new ones, to sort of say, well, this is how it should be realigned. And B teams, like you said, James, if that did happen, I know it's the case in Spain and Germany, but it's kind of slightly more entrenched there. But if it did, then certainly it would lose my interest in English football as well, if not the whole sport, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough that I do like other sports, so I would miss football because it's been part of my life forever. But I mean, I would, as a point of principle, and just it wouldn't be the sport that I fell in love with. It could be a completely different entity. I mean, I don't have any interest in Spanish football. It's one of the European leagues, which I take very little interest in. And again, you've got, is it Barca B playing in, are they in the second or third tier?
There's no one at the minute they're in the thirds, all the B teams, but there are a couple who in the past have been in the second tier.
Yeah, that's disgusting. Makes me shudder with this horror at the thought of, Manchester United B team playing Nottingham Forest in the Championship for the,
You see these EFL Trophy games, that people are breaking their record lowest attendances, and it's the ones against the under-21 sides. That's how little care people have got for them.
Yeah, because it's not proper football. I mean, no one cares. It's not...
No.
We like our games against other small-time towns that think they're the big boys. We like that kind of that rivalry. You've got the Burslem and Crewe game. Where they all know that they are the biggest team and they're the better team. They all think that. That's great. That's fun. And it's as long as I always think with rivalries like that, geographical rivalries, as long as it's maintained a little bit of tongue-in-cheek and and bragging rights and doesn't get stupid in terms of we've seen rivalries get in the past. That's all great. But you'd lose a lot of that tradition if you start having B teams emerging into your league system, and it's not something I'd like to see at all. Regionalisation, again, I wouldn't really like to see it because I do like the fact that we have football diverse across the country and you can make these trips. However, in the current financial situation, it does kind of make sense in some regards. Not having to travel on a Tuesday night from Carlisle to Plymouth is a very helpful thing for clubs not to have to expend their already limited resources on. But again, there's something heroic about supporters travelling, 12-hour round trips to watch their team get beat 1-0, due to a goal that came off someone's backside. It is what football has always been since I've been watching it. So there is that debate, but this season does need to be decided somehow. I don't think nulling and voiding this season. I mean, I can see why there's merit to it because it is kind of saying the competition wasn't completed and therefore we can't really hypothetically produce results that haven't been played because that's not fair either. But I have to say, I think 37 games or 7 months of hard work for certain teams that may never get another opportunity. And that's the thing about low league football. It's not like you're a Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal fan. I mean, Arsenal maybe not so much these days, but they will be at some point, you'd imagine. But you kind of get the same success or opportunity of success every year if you're that kind of club. If you're a Crewe, if you're an Oxford United, promotions come round very rarely. And so those opportunities and 7 months of hard work to get into that position, I can see why there needs to be some sort of resolution in a lot of people's minds for it. I don't know, Peter. I mean, if you take away your position of nulling and voiding, what would be your second preference as to how to end this campaign?
To actually end it, but that article in The Athletic seems to suggest that that's kind of off the table now. Every other method of doing it is either some statistical model that doesn't.
Well, what I mean by end it is, as in conclude it in some sort of.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'd rather they ended it on the field. Is what I'm saying. But as I said, that option seems to have been taken away. If you believe that article, so it's kind of in this kind of quite black and white. I'd rather go the whole hog and actually conclude it all the games, even if it takes months on the field, and then. Obviously, the 2021 season might look a lot different, and it probably will anyway. Or they just don't, because any other method, any sort of in-between method, will probably be subject to legal action, like we've already discussed.
Well, I think they should get all the chairmen in a room, and then
lock the door, maybe.
Well, you can either have a massive fight club, right?
Wow.
That would be quite interesting.
Yeah, but Jerry Barton would win that easily.
He's not a chairman though, so we wouldn't allow him in.
Not chairman, no, I suppose.
No, and if you could have a rule to make it fair, like if a chairman is over sort of 70, he can have like maybe a dog to help him in the fight. I don't know, something like that. Anyway, you could do that, or you could just play rock paper scissors to decide the final fixtures, because that's about as good as a points per game hypothetical system, really. And in fact, there is actually a tangible result there, whereas. assuming that someone's going to beat someone, because that's the way the season has so far gone. Like I say, it's difficult. I mean, what other ways could you end the season that's fair? I mean, there is literally no way apart from playing out the remaining fixtures, and even that now with what's happened at some clubs. I mean, Colchester having to release these 4 players means that they aren't the same squad that started the campaign.
I think we've got to start to accept that there's no normal outcome here. 1920 is always going to have that asterisk next to it, as in it either ended early or it didn't end at all, or things like that. And I think I was reading this article about how there's a lack of altruism with clubs in the Premier League, and I think that stems down to the EFL as well, where you talk to, Darren McAntony's got his thoughts about how he wants to end the season that focus on the sustainability and success of Peterborough. You go to someone like Andy Holt, who wants a different method for the sustainability and the success of Accrington. There's no general consensus amongst everyone. Everyone wants what suits their club best, understandably.
Well, Andy Holt did reveal, I think, a week ago or so, that it would cost him £500,000 to end the season on the pitch with Accrington.
Yeah.
So this is a huge outlay, and he wants to know, what's the plan going forward if they did that? Because for Accrington, there's very little to play for in terms of getting back out on the field for the rest of the season, other than potentially risking the health and safety of their playing squad and staff.
I don't get why. I think about the mid-table clubs, the likes of Accrington, Burton, Blackpool, Shrewsbury, then the ones in League Two as well. What's the point in going out at this situation at the minute when we're still, no one can say we're past, government talk about being past the peak. I'm not even sure we're past it, to be honest, but what's the point?
When you've still got 500 to 600 people
exactly.
dying every day. Yeah,
what's the point sending players out for meaningless games against mid-table sides, risking not just their health but their family's health, just to play some games where they just end up finishing 14th anyway?
Rock, paper, scissors, guys. I swear. It's, or you could toss a coin. But...
Yeah.
Oh, coins. Didn't they discuss drawing of lots at one point? I saw that as well. There was talk about, someone suggested drawing lots. I can't remember who it was. Because all the League One sides are within 3 points of each other.
Should have a massive game of EFL Pictionary. Whoever wins, at least it'd be fun. And you could actually charge people some ticket money to watch that. I'd watch that. Or charades. That'd be quite good.
Charades.
Yeah. Something. I don't know. There's no fair way of ending the season. That is the point we're making. Unless you play it on the pitch, and even so, I'd say that's kind of a little tainted now, because you will have some squads without the players that they would have had otherwise. To remove 4 key players from your team, like Colchester have had to, which highlights to me as well. Letting your captain go highlights just how serious this situation is. No money coming in. But there we go. It's a difficult situation altogether. We will find out whether that article in The Athletic has weight, whether that is the true path that they're going to take, or not in the coming weeks. When's the meeting, Ed, that they're having? Is it this coming week?
Hang on, let me have a look. It's either Tuesday or Wednesday. Let me see if I can find it.
Peter, your final thoughts on this, because obviously there are wider implications to football, isn't there, from the coronavirus, and not just how this particular season ends. It's long term.
Yeah,
we need to see how clubs can survive and how they can be sustainable, really.
Yeah, how clubs are funded. That's going to be the main issue for me. Obviously, for most clubs in the EFL, their main expenditure is players' salaries, and maybe that's going to have to get looked at, to be quite honest with you, in the future, because this just not sustainable. It wasn't sustainable before, and this has only exacerbated things when most of those clubs have got zero income now.
Would you be in favour of something like a wage cap, either based on clubs' turnover or just a flat one for the division you're playing in?
I'd rather there be a flat one. I know that could be exploited, and some would say, that still favours the teams with more financial muscle, but I'm sure there are ways around that. And just one final thing, that just in case anybody's maybe thinking, I want this season to be null and voided, so somehow Bury get back in the League 1 or 2. That's just simply not the case. I accepted probably a long time before most other fans that that wasn't going to be something that happened before, before the coronavirus and any legal action that was considered at the time. No, I'm happy for them to start at the bottom, and whenever that is, well, I think that's going to be a long time to come. Yeah, I don't, talking about first peak, there'll probably be a second peak in this winter, and then who knows until there's an actual vaccine. So it's going to be a very different, years to come because of this now.
Yeah, indeed, it may well be. Just before you go, Peter, what is the current situation at Bury for those who haven't been keeping up? Because I know AFC Bury want to restart. I know Steve Dale is currently still owner of the current Bury club, which is still technically in existence.
It still technically exists. I don't think there's been any change there. I personally am a member of AFC Bury now, which is, welcoming memberships to help fund whenever they first kick off.
I've seen some fans who I couldn't believe it, but I did see some Bury fans suggesting that they should give Steve Dale a chance. What? No.
Yeah, I was glad I was sitting down when I read that at first.
Utter tripe. Utter garbage. The guy is, well, actually, I can't say much on this podcast, but
it's simply based on the fact that technically speaking, he owns Gig Lane, as in the stadium, technically. And people are, anything against that or Bury as an entity, as in the business. Some people think you're not a true Bury fan if you have any other opinion, like I would support or follow AFC simply because it's not anything to do with him. I don't personally care that much about where they play. It's more about the spirit of things. It's more about being communicative with fans and, doing business, conducting their business in the right way and this sort of thing. That's much more important to me than any name or anywhere they particularly play. But it's just my 2 penneth anyway.
Well, exactly. And I think AFC Wimbledon is a case in point of what the club really is. Compared to what it could have been if things had gone a different way. So I wish you all the best in that, and I hope we do see. I mean, obviously the landscape has changed now, but I do expect that we'll see AFC Bury competing in the non-league scene sooner rather than later, hopefully.
Yeah.
And Ed, I do appreciate you both. In fact, both of you, I appreciate you joining me at this early hour to discuss matters which are so still hypothetical at this stage.
Yep, let's hope we get an answer. And they expect the decision around Monday or Tuesday. So let's hope we get it. Let's hope we find out.
Indeed, let's hope we find out. If you are a patron of us, thank you so much for your continued support. It is very much appreciated, especially in these times where there is literally no football on. We're still trying to bring you a bit of content that is worthy of your ears. So hopefully you've enjoyed this chat this morning. We will be back, as I say, as and when there is something worthy to talk about. But I hope everyone is staying safe at this current time. It's just very surreal, the world we're living in right now. And as much as I love football, there are bigger things and implications going on. So stay safe, everyone. Until we reconvene, take care.